My name is Annabelle and I am, or was, a videographer. I did open commissions online. Usually I got normal requests, random videos, plus the occasional short film. These were my favorite. The short films, I mean. Not only were they fun, they paid well. That's the main reason I was so eager when I got an odd request. The email came in at 2:14 a.m., which should have been my first clue, but my sleep schedule was already wrecked from chasing deadlines and coffee like it owed me money. The subject line was polite in a way that didn't feel human. Commission request, filming only, cash up front. No name, no portfolio, no link to a site. Just a block of text like someone had copied it out of a template and forgot to fill the parts that made it real. They said they were a small group making a mostly improv short film. They needed someone with a decent camera who could follow instructions. They'd pay half in advance, half on delivery. There was a number at the bottom. I remember staring at it, thumb hovering, doing that little internal math. Rent, groceries, the credit card minimum I'd been pretending didn't exist. I texted them. Within 10 seconds, my phone rang. I almost didn't pick up. Something about the speed made my skin prickle, like a spider had dropped on my shoulder, and I wasn't sure yet if it was alive. Annabelle. A man said, cheerful, like we were old friends. Perfect. Thank you for replying. His voice was too clean. Not like he was using a fancy mic, like there wasn't any room noise at all. Nobody's. No rustle. Like he existed in a quiet place that didn't have air. Yeah, I said. That's me. E. I'm so glad, he said. We've had trouble with camera people. They get squeamish. That made me laugh, because what else do you do when someone drops a word like squeamish on you out of nowhere? I've filmed weddings, I said. I'm pretty unkillable. He chuckled like he was reading it off a script. Wonderful, wonderful. You'll do great. We had a few calls after that. He called himself the director. Not a name, just the director, like it was a title you didn't earn. You just were. Every time we talked, he was upbeat and slightly rushed, like he had to keep moving or something would catch up to him. We got the where and when worked out, but I still wasn't clear on the what. They wouldn't tell me what it was being made for. They wouldn't tell me if it would be made public. The director danced around it with practiced ease. It's for an audience, he'd say, like that meant anything. It's important. It's intimate. We like to keep it contained. Contained. That word stuck to my brain like gum under a table. If this happens, always clear things up. I hadn't worked on a short film in a while, and they offered a good sum of money. So I accepted without too many questions. I told myself it was just artsy people being weird. I told myself I'd show up, film some improvised dramatic nonsense, collect my check, go home. Around a month later, the set filming time, I packed up my equipment and headed toward the designated filming area. The address led me out of the city into one of those dead zones where businesses go to rot. Warehouses with busted windows. A half-finished strip mall with weeds coming up through the asphalt. A billboard with a face sun-bleached into a skull shape. It was late afternoon, sky the color of dirty dishwater. My GPS kept telling me I had arrived while I was still on a road that didn't look like it believed in arrivals. Just gravel and scrubby trees and chain link fences. Finally, I saw it. An old building set back from the road, low and long, like a school that got tired and laid down. No sign, no lights, just a couple of cars parked near the entrance. Unremarkable sedans, nothing fancy, all in shades of gray and black like someone had drained the color from the scene. I got there a little early and saw some people setting up the last bits of the set. They were hauling boards, hanging sheets, adjusting a standing lamp. The kind you'd see in someone's living room, not on a set. They were working quietly, not focused quiet, more like funeral quiet. A woman looked up when I parked. She held eye contact too long. Then she smiled, and the smile didn't reach her eyes, and she went back to what she was doing like I'd never existed. I pulled my camera case out of the trunk and slung my bag over my shoulder. The air smelled wrong. Not just old building wrong. Wrong like wet pennies and dust, and something faintly sweet underneath, like a candle someone blew out hours ago. Inside, the building was colder than it should have been, like it had its own weather. The director met me in a hallway that reminded me of hospitals. Off-white walls, cheap tile, fluorescent lights that buzzed like flies. He was average-looking in a way that make your brain slide right off him. Mid-30s maybe, clean-shaven, hair neatly combed, wearing a black hoodie and jeans like he was trying to look casual on purpose. "Annabelle," he said, arms wide, smile bright. "You made it. Fantastic." He shook my hand. His palm was dry and cool. His grip was firm, but his fingers felt stiff, like he wasn't used to holding another person. "Yeah," I said, trying to match his energy. "Hi. Where do you want me?" "Right this way," he said. He led me through a door into a large room that had been turned into a set. Sort of. It looked like a cheap apartment living room built inside the shell of an abandoned place. There was a couch facing away from the camera spot, a coffee table, a lamp, some framed pictures on the wall that were too generic to be anyone's family. The corners of a room disappeared into darkness beyond the set lights. 2 actors were already there, sitting on the couch. A man and a woman. Both young, both normal. At first, they stood when I came in. The woman gave me a small wave, polite but guarded. The man nodded like he was acknowledging a co-worker he didn't like. "Annabelle," the director said, gesturing at them. "This is Mara and this is Eli." Those are the names he gave, anyway. I remember them because I repeated them in my head later like a prayer, and it didn't help. "Hey," Mara said. Her voice was soft, careful. "Hi," Eli said flat. I set my case down where the director indicated. I briefly met the other people in the room. 2 guys moving lights, someone hunched over a laptop, another woman checking something on a clipboard. None of them introduced themselves. They didn't look at me any longer than necessary. I started setting up my camera for shot 1. Tripod, level, frame the couch. Easy. The director hovered behind me, hands clasped behind his back like a teacher watching a kid take a test. "I wasn't clear on exactly what you wanted me to do," I said, keeping my voice light. "Like, are we doing multiple angles? B-roll? Any specific coverage?" He smiled wider, like I'd said something funny. "Oh no," he said. "None of that." He leaned closer, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. "I wanted to just film. No fancy angles. No cuts. You're just supposed to keep the camera rolling until we say to stop." I blinked. The whole time, he said. "We like it continuous." That word again. Contained. Continuous. Like they were building a little box. I found this odd, but again, I needed the money. And honestly, part of me liked how simple it sounded. No worrying about missing a reaction shot. No cutting around awkward improv. "Okay," I said. "Sure." "Perfect," he said. "We'll start when you're ready." I checked my settings. White balance. Exposure. Focus. I hit record. The little red dot appeared in the corner of the screen. "Rolling," I said, mostly for my own comfort. Then I waited for the actors to start. Both people currently on screen stared at me in silence until the woman spoke up. "We can't do this with you watching," she said pointedly. I laughed again because what the hell? What? I asked, getting more confused. Mara's eyes flicked toward the director, like she wanted him to handle it, but he just stood there smiling like a proud dad at a recital. "Can't you start the camera and look away?" Eli asked. Our old camera guy always did. Something cold slid down my spine. Not fear yet, more like instinct tapping me on the shoulder. I wondered briefly what happened to the old one. I said, I can, I guess. But why? Mara's mouth twitched like she didn't want to answer. "It's better," she said. "It's less pressure." That sounded like bullshit, but actors are weird sometimes, and improv people can be precious about energy and vibe and whatever. I told myself it was that. I told myself they were shy. I turned the camera screen slightly, so I could still see it peripherally, then I awkwardly turned around. The silence behind me was heavy. No shifting on the couch. No clearing throats. Nothing. Like they'd all stopped existing the moment I stopped looking. After maybe 15 seconds, Mara spoke again. "Can't you walk away?" she questioned. "You can still hear us from there." I looked over my shoulder. The director gave me an encouraging nod, like this was normal. Like he'd ask camera operators to leave their cameras alone and walk away 100 times. I no longer thought this filming experience would be at all fun, but I didn't expect it to go the way it did. I still needed the money, so I sighed and walked away, very confused. The director pointed me toward a door at the side of the room. "Just wait in there," he said. "We'll call you when we're done." The door led to a smaller room. It might have been an office once. It had a metal desk bolted to the floor and a couple of mismatched chairs. The air in there tasted like old paper and mold. There was no clock. There was no window. The only light came from a single fluorescent fixture that flickered just enough to make my eyes ache. The director shut the door behind me. It didn't click like a normal latch. It made a soft, wet sound like a suction cup pulling free. I stared at the door for a second. Then I laughed under my breath and pulled out my phone, because that's what you do when you're uncomfortable and you don't want to admit it. I sat in that room for nearly the rest of the time. Mostly I just scrolled social media, a bad habit, but I can't stop. Or I couldn't stop then. At first, it was normal. I checked notifications. I replied to a friend. I watched a dumb video with a dog falling off a couch. I try not to think about the fact that I could still hear nothing from the set. Because you'd think, right? Improv short film. 2 actors. There'd be yelling, laughing, takes restarting. The director giving notes. Something. But the hallway outside my door stayed silent. Not even footsteps. After maybe 20 minutes, I got up and cracked the door open a couple inches, trying to be casual about it like I wasn't suddenly aware of how alone I was. The hallway was empty. The lights buzzed. The air was cold. Far away, I could see the faint glow from the set room under the door at the end. I listened. Nothing. Then very faintly, something like breathing. Not close. Not far. Just everywhere. Like the building itself had lungs. I shut the door again and sat back down. My phone suddenly felt too bright. I tried to text the director a quick "everything okay?" but when I hit send, the message failed. No service. I checked my bars. 0. I switched off Wi-Fi. Nothing. I told myself it was an old building, thick walls, dead zone. Whatever. To distract myself, I pulled up the camera's remote app on my phone, the one that lets you monitor certain settings and see a low-res feed if you're connected. I hadn't connected it. I didn't want to. Something about seeing the set while not being there felt wrong. I know that sounds stupid, but that's the first time I noticed my brain making little protective choices, like it had already decided something was dangerous and didn't want to tell me yet. So I just sat there, scrolling, refreshing, doomed scrolling into that flickering fluorescent hum like it was a lullaby. Time got weird. The light flickered. My eyes watered. I scratched my arm until it stung because the skin felt too tight. Every once in a while I'd hear something, and every time I thought I did, I realized it was just my own body, my swallow, my breath, my stomach making that hollow sound when you haven't eaten. I started to feel embarrassed, like maybe the actors were doing some super intimate scene and they didn't want a stranger watching, and I was being an asshole by being suspicious. Then maybe an hour into, I don't know, there was a sound in the hallway, a soft scrape like a shoe dragging. I froze with my phone in my hand. The scrape came again, then another. Slow, patient. It stopped right outside my door. I held my breath. No knock, no voice. Just that heavy, everywhere breathing again. I stared at the crack under the door. There was no shadow, no change in light. I don't know how long I sat like that, listening so hard my ears hurt, waiting for something to happen. Then the scrape moved away. I exhaled shakily and told myself it was one of the crew going to the bathroom. That's all. Normal. I was being paranoid because I was stuck in a creepy old building with no service. That happens. But my hands wouldn't stop sweating. When I finally got called back, it wasn't a knock. It was the director's voice right outside the door, bright and cheerful like nothing had happened. "Annabelle, we're ready for you." I opened the door so fast, I almost smacked him with it. He was smiling. Same as always. No squat, no tensión. Like he'd been waiting outside for 2 seconds. Not however long it was. "Yeah," I said, trying to laugh. Okay, cool. I followed him back to the set room. The lights in there seemed dimmer than before. Or maybe my eyes were just tired. The couch was empty now. The coffee table had something on it that hadn't been there before. A glass of water, half full, with a film of dust floating on the surface like it had been sitting out for days. Mara and Eli stood near the wall, not looking at each other, not looking at anyone. Their posture was stiff, like mannequins someone had posed and forgotten. "Stop the camera," the director said, "and send the footage to our editor." I walked to the tripod. My stomach clenched. The camera screen showed the set from the angle I'd left it. The couch, the wall, the framed pictures, the lamp, the red that was still there. Recording. My first thought was relief. Okay, it filmed. Great. Get paid. Leave. Then I noticed the time counter. It said it had been recording for 3 hours and 58 minutes. That didn't match my sense of time at all. I swallowed and hit stop. The red dot vanished. I turned toward the director. "So, is that it?" "Yes," he said. "You did wonderfully." "I didn't do anything," I muttered. He laughed like he hadn't heard me. He handed me an envelope. "Thick. Cash. Thank you for being so flexible," he said. "We appreciate professionals." I forced a smile because money. "Yeah," I said. "No problem." I unplugged my gear with shaking hands. I tried to hide. I didn't say goodbye to Mara and Eli. I couldn't bring myself to. They were standing too still. Their eyes were open but unfocused, like they were staring at something behind my head. As I packed, I realized something else. The air smelled different now. Not sweet, not pennies. It smelled like cold meat. I left the second I was done. Something had changed. I didn't just think it had been an odd experience anymore. Something about that place gave me chills, and I had to go. Outside, the sky had gone darker than it should have been for that time of day. The clouds hung low, almost purple. The wind felt like it was pushing me away from the building. When I got in my car and started it, the radio came on automatically, blasting static so loud I jolted. I slapped it off, heart hammering. My phone still had no service until I was halfway back to the main road. Then it suddenly buzzed with missed notifications all at once, like it had been holding its breath too. When I got back to my apartment, I thought for a while and realized what had offset me. The actors had looked different. Not completely different, but different. Their faces had looked off. It wasn't just tiredness. It was like the proportions had shifted slightly. Like someone had taken a photo and stretched it just a little too far, and your brain registers it as wrong without knowing why. Mara's cheekbones seemed sharper. Eli's jaw seemed heavier. Their skin had a grayish undertone, like they hadn't seen sun in weeks. And their eyes looked like they'd been crying, but their faces were dry. Like the crying happened somewhere inside, where it couldn't come out. I tried to shrug it off. Maybe it was makeup. Maybe they were method actors doing some intense scene. Maybe the building lighting made them look sick. I just wanted to forget about it, but I was curious now. Later that day, I watched the recording. I should have deleted it. I should have transferred it and never opened it. I should have taken the money and treated the footage like it was radioactive. But curiosity is a disease, and I've always had a weak immune system. I put the footage on my laptop. I sat on my couch with a bowl of cereal I couldn't taste. I hit play. At first, nothing happened. The camera pointed at the couch. Empty set. Silent. The lamp buzzing softly. The framed pictures crooked by a few degrees. The time counter in the corner ticked. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then Mara and Eli walked in a frame. They moved like people. Like normal people. They sat on the couch, facing the camera. And they stared straight into the lens. Not past it, not near it, at it, like they knew someone was watching. I paused the video. My skin crawled. I told myself, maybe they were waiting for direction. Maybe they thought I was still behind the camera. Maybe. I hit play again. They sat there, staring, for almost 5 full minutes. No blinking, no shifting, no feeding, just still, like portraits. I started to feel stupid. I almost closed it. Almost. Then Mara spoke. Her mouth moved normally, but her voice came out delayed by half a second, like bad lip sync. "We can't do this with you watching," she said. It was the same line she'd said to me in person, but on camera, it sounded flat. Not annoyed, not shy, just recited. Eli's voice came next, same delay. "Can't you start the camera and look away?" Our old camera guy always did. Then there was a pause. On camera, I heard something I hadn't heard in the room. A third presence. A sound like fabric rubbing against fabric, slow and heavy, as if someone big was moving just out of frame. Mara and Eli's eyes flicked, just slightly to the left of the camera. Not toward where I'd been standing, toward somewhere lower, closer to the floor. Mara swallowed hard. You could see her throat bob like she was trying to force something down. Then, very quietly, she said, "Can't you walk away?" Her voice shook on camera, but her face didn't change. Like her fear was happening under the skin where it couldn't reach expression. The fabric sound got closer. I leaned toward the screen without meaning to. Serial forgotten. Then the camera moved. Not a pan, not a tilt. A tiny jostle, like someone had brushed the tripod lightly. I sat up straight, suddenly cold. I hadn't been in the room. No one should have touched the camera. The actors didn't react. They kept staring. Then the picture on the wall, behind them, a generic landscape photo, shifted. It tilted slowly, like an invisible hand was straightening it. Mara's eyes widened. "Ilias leaps parted." The director's voice came from behind the camera, faint, cheerful. "Great," he said. "Great. Keep going." I couldn't hear my own voice in the video. I couldn't hear footsteps. I couldn't hear the door. But I heard the breathing. A low, wet inhale that seemed to fill the room, saturate it, press against the microphone like fog. Mara started talking again, but the words weren't improv. They were wrong. They sounded like lines from a play translated through too many languages. "I'm open," she said, staring at the lens. "I am a room that waits. I am a mouth without teeth." Eli spoke, voice trembling with that delay drag. "I am a guest. I am the hunger. I am the hand that learns the shape of a face." The air in my apartment felt suddenly stale. I realized I'd been holding my breath and forced myself to inhale. On screen, Mara's eyes began to water. Real tears now. They rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't blink. She didn't wipe them away. Her face stayed locked in place, like her muscles had been frozen. Eli's nostrils flared like he was smelling something foul. Then, behind him, in the darkness past the edge of the set, something moved. At first, it looked like a shadow shifting, just a darker patch inside darkness. Then it leaned forward into the spill of set light. Not enough to see it clearly, enough to see it was there. A shape, low to the ground, broad at the shoulders, too smooth in its outline. Like a person wrapped in a sheet, except it wasn't a sheet. It was skin, maybe, or something pretending to be. It didn't have a face. Or it did, but not where it should have been. Mara's lips kept moving. "I'm open," she said again, and her voice cracked. Eli's voice dropped into a whisper that the mic still caught too well. "Please," he said. The director's voice, still cheerful, said, "No breaks. Keep going." The faceless shape moved closer. I could tell because the light caught it more. It was glossy, wet-looking. It reached an arm, too long, bending wrong at the joint, toward the back of the couch. Mara let out a sound that wasn't a scream because her mouth barely opened. It was a thin, strangled moan, like she was trying not to make noise in a room where noise gets you punished. The arm touched her shoulder. Her skin dimpled under the pressure like clay. Her eyes went wide, and for the first time her face moved, just for a second, into an expression of pure, unfiltered terror. Then her features shifted, not dramatically, not like a monster movie transformation. Subtle. Her nose flattened slightly. Her cheekbones slid. Her lips pulled thinner, like someone was smoothing her face with a wet hand, erasing details. Eli started shaking. His hands gripped his knees so hard his knuckles went white. He stared straight ahead, tears pouring now, his mouth trembling. The arm moved to him. The director's voice whispered, almost lovingly, "There we go." The screen flickered. For one frame, one single blink of time, I saw something in the camera reflection behind them that made my stomach drop out of my body. Because the set had a framed picture on the wall, glass front. And in that glass, I could see the camera. And behind the camera, I could see me, not sitting behind it, standing there facing it, even though I remembered turning away, even though I remembered walking into the other room. In the reflection, my face was slack. My mouth hung slightly open. My eyes were fixed on the actors like I couldn't look away. And there was something behind my shoulder. Something tall. So tall its head was cut off by the frame. A hand, too long, too many joints, rested on my shoulder like a friend. I slapped my laptop shut so hard it nearly snapped. My cereal bowl hit the floor. Milk splashed my socks. I sat there, breathing hard, staring at the closed lid like it was going to open on its own. My heart pounded so violently I could hear it in my ears, drowning out everything. I told myself it was a glitch, a compression artifact, a weird reflection. Maybe I'd leaned into frame at some point and forgot. But I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. I didn't open the laptop again that night. I didn't sleep at all that night. Trust me, I tried. I turned on every light in my apartment. I sat on my couch with a kitchen knife in my lap like that would help. I watched stupid reality TV with the volume up so I wouldn't hear the building creak. Every time my eyelids got heavy, I'd see that reflection again. Me standing there like a doll. Something behind me, holding me steady. Around 5 a.m., my phone buzzed. A notification from my social media account. Someone had tagged me in a post. I didn't open it. I just stared at the lock screen, thumb shaking. Another buzz, then another. I turned the phone face down and tried to breathe. When the sun finally came up, it didn't make me feel better. It just made everything look too normal, which somehow felt worse. I deleted my social media account that morning. Not deactivated, deleted. I wiped everything. My videos, my portfolio links, my commissions page, my contact info. I changed my email password. Then I changed it again. Then I sat on my kitchen floor and shook like I'd been in a car crash. I stopped doing open commissions. I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself I just needed a break. But the truth is I felt exposed. Like I'd left my front door open for months and only just noticed. I was able to get a job at a cafe. It wasn't glamorous. It didn't pay like filming gigs. But it was steady and it had people and it smelled like espresso and baked sugar instead of wet pennies and cold meat. I thought it would help me keep my mind off of that film, but it didn't, because the film stayed in my head like a splinter. I tried to reason it out. I tried to tell myself it was an avant-garde horror project. Practical effects, weird acting exercises, some kind of experimental piece about consent and voyeurism. Maybe something artsy people would pat themselves on the back for. But that reflection, and the time counter, and the way Mara and Eli looked when I left, like they'd been hollowed out. I can't describe to you what was on that camera. Not fully. Not in a way that makes it make sense. Every time I try, my brain pushes back like it's protecting itself. This is all I can say. The actors, they're gone. I won't give you their names because someone might try to find them. That's not a good idea. It might take you too. I know how that sounds. Like some cheesy warning at the end of a chain email. Like I'm trying to scare you for clicks. I'm not. I'm telling you because I can't carry it alone anymore. Every time I'm happy, I think about them. Those poor actors. And then I always decide I don't have the right to be happy. Not when I had been a part in creating that film. Not when more is still being made. I know they keep making them because I got a message. I don't know how they got my number, and I don't want to know. I had deleted my accounts. I had stopped posting. I hadn't even told anyone at the cafe what I used to do because I didn't want the word videographer attached to me anymore like a label on a jar. Still, they found me. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because the cafe had a shipment screw up and we ran out of oat milk and everyone acted like it was the end of civilization. I was exhausted, sticky with syrup, and my feet hurt so bad I want to cry. When I got home, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. No area code I recognized, just digits that looked slightly off, like one of them had too many angles. The message was short and sweet. Only a couple sentences. Hello, Annabelle. You did such a good job filming, we decided to offer you another job. This time you could be an actor. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I stared at my own reflection in the black glass, and for a second, just a second, I thought I saw something behind my shoulder. The phone buzzed again immediately, like it didn't like being ignored. A second text came in. Same number. Tomorrow. Same place. Don't bring your camera. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the screen and smeared the words. I threw the phone onto the couch like it had burned me. Then, because my brain is stupid and human, I snatched it back up to block the number. My thumb hovered over the button. Before I could tap it, a third message appeared, typing bubble first, then letters. We know where you work. My throat closed. I stood up so fast my knee hit the coffee table. Pain shot up my leg, and I barely felt it. The apartment suddenly felt too small, too quiet, like the air had thickened. I typed back without thinking, hands shaking so hard I hit the wrong letters. What do you want? The reply came instantly. To finish the film. I swallowed, tasted bile. I typed again. No, leave me alone. A pause, long enough for my heartbeat to get loud again. Then, you already agreed. That made me laugh. A hard, ugly sound. I didn't agree to act. I didn't agree to any of this. I started typing something furious, something desperate, something that would make it stop. And before I could send it, there was a knock at my door. Not the polite little tap of a neighbor. Not the random thud of someone bumping the hallway wall. 3 slow, heavy knocks, spaced like a rhythm. My blood turned to ice. I didn't move. The knock came again. Same pattern, same patience. I backed away from the door without meaning to, like my body was trying to put distance between me and whatever was out there. My phone buzzed in my hand. One more text. Check the peephole. I stared at the door like it had become a wild animal. I took one step forward, then stopped, because every horror movie I'd ever seen screamed to me not to, and also because something deep in my gut whispered that seeing was the whole point. I thought of the reflection in the glass. I thought of Mara's face being smoothed like clay. I thought of the director's voice saying, "There we go." The knock started again, slower this time, like whoever was had all night. My hand rose toward the peephole anyway, fingers trembling, because fear doesn't make you smart, it just makes you obedient in new ways. My hand rose toward the peephole anyway, fingers trembling, because fear doesn't make you smart, it just makes you obedient in new ways. The hallway lens warped everything into a fishbowl, so at first all I saw was the yellowed light, the scuffed carpet, the neighbor's door across from mine. Then a face slid into view, so close it filled the whole peephole. Not pressed up against it like someone trying to see in. Aligned with it. Centered. Like it knew exactly where my eye would be. It was the director. Same neat hair. Same average features. Same bright, practiced smile. Only now, with his face that close, I could see details my brain hadn't bothered to store before. Tiny, shallow cracks at the corners of his mouth like dried paint, and eyes that didn't reflect the hallway light the way eyes should. They looked matte, like glass that had been sanded. He didn't knock again. He just waited there, smiling at the peephole, like he was smiling directly at my pupil. My throat made a sound when I tried to swallow. My phone buzzed again. Open the door, Annabelle. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. My back hit the wall hard enough to rattle the framed print I'd hung when I first moved in. My pulse roared in my ears. I didn't answer. Another buzz. We're being polite. The knocks came again. 3. Slow. Like a metronome. I realized then, sickly, crystal clear, that he didn't need me to open the door. The door was just a formality. Like consent is a formality. Like a signature at the bottom of a page you didn't read. I backed into the kitchen, grabbed the knife again, and stood there with it held out in front of me like I'd ever actually stabbed somebody. My hands were shaking so badly the blade wobbled, catching the overhead light in nervous flashes. The phone buzzed a third time. If you don't come tomorrow, we'll come to your work. We'll bring the film with us. I didn't know what that meant, not exactly, but the way my stomach twisted told me my body understood it better than my brain did. I opened my mouth and tried to scream for help because that's what you're supposed to do. Nothing came out, not even a whisper. It was like the sound got stuck behind my teeth. The knock stopped. Silence. I stood there frozen for a long time, listening for footsteps. Nothing. I crept back to the door and looked through the peephole again. The hallway was empty. No director, no crew, no sado, just the dead hum of the lights. My phone buzzed once more, gentle as a kiss. Good. See you tomorrow. I didn't sleep. Again. I tried to pace myself, try not to spiral, but everything in my apartment felt watched. Every reflective surface, the microwave door, the dark TV screen, the window at night, felt like a trap. Like if I looked at the wrong angle, I'd see myself standing somewhere I wasn't. At 6 a.m., I finally called the police. I know how that sounds. Like, what did I expect? A SWAT team to show up because a guy texted me and knocked on my door? But I was so tired my thoughts were soft. I just needed someone official to tell me I wasn't crazy. The dispatcher was bored. I could hear chewing in the background like gum. Ma'am, she said after I explained the knocking and the texts. Has anyone physically harmed you? No, I said. Not yet. Has anyone broken into your residence? No. Then we can't dispatch units for someone knocking and leaving, she said, voice flat. If they return and refuse to leave, you can call again. You don't understand, I said, gripping the phone hard enough my fingertips hurt. He's threatening my job. He's. Ma'am, she cut in sharper now. If you feel you're in immediate danger, call 911. I'm calling 911. A pause. A sigh. Do you have a name? The director, I said, and hated how stupid it sounded. Okay, she said, like she was trying not to laugh. A name, ma'am. I don't know it, I snapped. He won't give it. Another pause. I heard keys clicking. Do you have an address for where you met him? Yes, I said, but it's weird. It's an old building outside town. Then file a report in person, she said. Bring the messages. We can document harassment. Document? I repeated, numb. That's it. That's the process, she said, and I could hear her smile without her meaning to. I hung up and stared at the phone like it had betrayed me, like it should have saved me because I used the right number. I spent the morning doing what people do when they're trying to feel in control. I cleaned. I scrubbed my counters until my knuckles cracked. I vacuumed like I was trying to suck a ghost out of the carpet. I took my trash out twice. Every few minutes I checked the peephole like an idiot. Nothing. At noon I called the cafe and told my manager I was sick. She sounded annoyed, but not surprised. Again, food poisoning, I lied. Don't come in, she said. We're short as hell. This is great. I didn't correct her. I just stared at the wall while she hung up, guilt mixing with fear until I felt like I might vomit. Because they'd said they knew where I worked. If I didn't show up, they'd go anyway. And I knew, deep down, they weren't bluffing. They didn't text like bluffers. They texted like people handing you a schedule. Around 3 p.m., I got another message. Not from the weird number, from a regular one, a local area code. It was my coworker, Jade. Hey girl, are you okay? Some dude came in asking for you. Weird vibe. He said he's with your film. My hands went cold. I typed back so fast I misspelled everything. What did he look like? Her reply came after a moment. Normalish. Hoodie. Smiling. Too much. I told him you were sick. He said, I hope she rests. Tomorrow will be busy. Then he left. Are you in trouble? I stared at that sentence until the letters blurred. Tomorrow will be busy. The air in my apartment thickened again. My skin prickled. I felt that same everywhere breathing, even though the room was silent. I texted back, don't talk to him if he comes again. Call the cops. Jade replied with a laughing emoji like she thought I was being dramatic. I didn't blame her. If I hadn't seen the footage, I'd laugh too. I sat on my couch and tried to think like an adult. Options. 1, run, pack a bag, disappear, crash a friend's place, change my number, get out of state. But they found my number after I deleted everything. They found my workplace. If I ran, would they just follow? Or would they punish the people around me for not delivering me? 2, fight. police report. Lawyer. Restraining order. Against who? The director. First name. The last name. Director? 3 go. The thought made my stomach flip, but it also came with something I hated. Relief. Because going meant the immediate threat to Jade, and the cafe stopped. Going meant I could see what they were doing and maybe do something about it. Or maybe it meant I was walking into a mouth. I sat there for a long time, knife on the coffee table, phone in my lap, staring at the wall like it might offer a fourth option if I stared hard enough. It didn't. By evening, I made a decision I told myself was for other people, but really, if I'm honest, it was also because the film had already gotten inside my head and was pulling on me like a hook. At 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with a new message from the weird number. Reminder no camera. As if I needed reminding. I replied with the only thing I could think of that felt like a shred of agency. If I come, you leave my work alone. You never contact them again. A pause. Longer this time. Then, of course, we're not cruel. I laughed out loud in my empty apartment. A short bark that sounded insane. Not cruel. I wanted to throw my phone out the window. Instead, I packed a bag. Not like I was going on a trip. Like I might not come back. Hoodie, jeans, spare socks, water, my charger. I wrote my manager's number and Jade's on a sticky note and stuck it to my fridge like that mattered. I almost called my mom. I didn't. How do you tell your mother you're being recruited into a horror film by something that might not be human? How do you make it sound real without sounding like you need a psych ward? At midnight, I opened my laptop again. I don't know why. Maybe because I wanted to confirm I wasn't misremembering. Maybe because some part of me believed if I looked at it enough, I'd find a logical explanation hiding in the pixels. I hit play and watched a few minutes. Mara and Eli staring. The delayed voices. The breathing. When that one frame of the reflection flashed by again, me standing there slack-faced, I paused it with a gasp. This time, because it was paused, I could really look. In the reflection, the hand on my shoulder wasn't just resting. It was holding something between its fingers. A thin strip, pale against the dark. At first I thought it was tape. Then I realized it was something else. A piece of skin. Not bloody. Not torn. Peeled clean like the rind of an apple. And my face in the reflection had a tiny bare patch along the jawline. Lighter than the rest of my skin. Like it had been scraped. I slapped the laptop closed again and ran to the bathroom. I leaned into the mirror and yanked my jaw to the side, examining my skin in harsh light. There was nothing. No mark. No escar. But when I touched the spot where the reflection showed the pale patch, my fingers tingled like they'd brushed static. I backed away from the mirror and didn't look at it again. Morning came like a threat. I showered and dressed in clothes that didn't matter. I didn't eat. I couldn't. My mouth tasted like metal. At 11 a.m., another message. On your way? I didn't reply. At 11:15, another message. We can pick you up. My stomach dropped. The idea of them knowing my exact location, being outside, waiting, I typed back. I'm coming. Don't come here. A single word came back. Good. At noon, I left my apartment. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking. Normal smells. Normal world. For a second, I almost cried because it felt so unfair that everything could look normal right before it turns. In the parking lot, I looked around like I expected to see the director leaning against my car, smiling. Nothing. I got in and drove. The address in my GPS was the same building as before. The closer I got, the less traffic there was, like the world was thinning out. Like I was driving out of reality and into the set of something that only pretended to be a place. When the building finally appeared, it looked exactly as it had. Dead, low, colorless. But there were more cars now. At least 8. All gray and black. Parked in neat rows like they'd been measured. I sat in my car with the engine off, hands on the steering wheel, listening to my own breath. The buildings seemed to watch me back. I forced myself out. The cold hit me first. It wasn't even that cold outside, but the air around that place had that same weird chill, like it was sucking warmth instead of giving it. The front door was propped open. Inside, the hallway lights buzzed like flies again. The director waited near the set room, smiling like we were meeting for coffee. "Annabelle," he said, delighted. "I knew you'd do the right thing." "You threatened my co-workers," I said, and my voice sounded steadier than I felt. He tilted his head, still smiling. "We visited. We didn't threaten. You said. We encouraged." He corrected gently, like I was a child misusing a word. My fingers curled into fists. "Where are Mara and Eli?" For the first time, his smile wavered. Just a hair, like a glitch. "They're busy," he said. "They did excellent work." "Are they alive?" I snapped. The director's eyes stayed matte. "They're part of the film now." My mouth went dry. "That doesn't answer." "It answers the important part," he said, and the smile returned full force. "Come, everyone's waiting. I'm not doing anything if you don't tell me what this is," I said, planting my feet. My knees shook, but I stood there anyway. His smile softened into something almost sympathetic. "Annabelle," he said, lowering his voice like we were sharing intimacy. "You already saw, didn't you?" I didn't answer, but my face must have. His smile widened. "Of course you did." He stepped closer. The air around him smelled faintly sweet now, like blown-out candle again. "The film needs honesty," he said. "It needs someone who's already opened a door." "I didn't open any door," I whispered. He looked past me, toward the hallway, then back to me. "Yes, you did. You looked." The way he said it, "looked," made it feel like a crime. My throat tightened. "What happens if I don't?" He shrugged, casual. "You can try. We'll continue without you. But you're already in the edit." My skin crawled. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said softly, "that it's easier to walk forward than backward now." I hated him. I hated his calm. I hated that he spoke like he owned the rules. But he was right about one thing. I was already in it. Ide batsha. I'd paused on that reflection. I'd replayed it. I let it loop in my mind. I'd looked. "Fine," I said, voice shaking with anger. "What do you want me to do?" His grin went bright again. "Wonderful. This way." He led me into the set room. It was different. Same basic living room setup, but the details had shifted like a dream, reusing a location wrong. The couch was a different color. The framed pictures were different, still generic, but the faces in them seemed smeared like someone had rubbed the ink while it was wet. There was a camera on the tripod again. Behind it stood a guy I didn't recognize, holding his hands clasped like he was praying. He looked about my age, mid-20s maybe. Soft face, dark circles under his eyes. He didn't look at me. Two actors sat on the couch, just like before. Not Mara and Eli, a man and a woman. Both pale, both staring straight at the lens as if it had them pinned. The director gestured toward me. "Annabelle, meet our cast. This is Lorna and this is Devin." The woman on the couch, Lorna, blinked slowly. Devin didn't blink at all. I looked at them and felt my stomach twist because I recognized something in their faces that I'd seen in Mara and Eli near the end. That subtle wrongness, like their features were drifting out of place. The director turned to the guy behind the camera. "This is Owen. He'll be operating today." Owen flinched at his name like it hurt. I stepped toward him. "Hey," I said softly. "Are you?" He cut me off without looking at me. "Don't," he whispered. "What?" I whispered back. His voice shook. "Don't talk like we're people here." My breath caught. What the fuck is going on? The director clapped his hands once. The sound echoed too long. "All right," he said brightly. "Same rules. Rolling continuous. No fancy English, no cuts." I stared at him. "You told me I'd be an actor." "You will," he said. "In a moment." He walked to me and placed a hand on my shoulder. I almost flinched away, but his grip tightened just enough to be a warning. His palm felt too cool. "You understand the process," he murmured. "That's why you're valuable." "Process," I spat. "You mean the part where the camera guy looks away?" He smiled. "Exactly." I looked at Owen. Owen stared at the floor, jaw clenched, like he was trying not to cry. Lorna's lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, delayed, her voice reached me. "We can't do this with you watching," she said. Devin followed, delayed too. Our old camera guy always did. The director's hand stayed on my shoulder, gentle pressure. "Owen," he said, voice warm. Start the camera. Owen lifted his hands to the camera like it was heavy. He hit record. The little red dot appeared on the monitor. The director leaned toward Owen. Now look away. Owen swallowed. Do I have to? Yes, the director said, still warm. Unless you want to be in it. Owen's shoulders shuddered. He turned his head away from the camera, staring at the wall like a punished child. Good, the director said. He turned to me. Now, Annabelle, you'll take Owen's place. I blinked. What? He nodded toward the small side room, the one I'd waited in before. Go sit. We'll call you when it's time. My stomach dropped. No, I'm not doing that again. I'm not leaving my... His fingers tightened on my shoulder. Pain lanced down my arm. You will, he said softly, smile still there. Because you think you're here to negotiate. You're here to participate. I tried to yank away. His grip didn't feel like a normal grip. It felt like hooks under my skin. I made a sound, half gasp, half sob, and stumbled toward the side room because my body decided survival over pride. Behind me, Lorna spoke again. Can't you walk away? Devin's voice, lower, almost pleading. You can still hear us from there. The director's cheerful voice. Perfect. Just like that. Keep going. I went into the side room, and the door shut behind me with that wet suction sound. I stood there shaking, breathing hard, palms sweating. I didn't sit. I pressed my ear to the door. At first, nothing. Then the breathing started. That everywhere inhale, wet and heavy, like the building had a throat full of syrup. I heard Lorna's voice, delayed and brittle. I am open. Devin, I am the guest. The director, murmuring like a coach. Yes. Yes. Let it in. There was a sound then that made my blood go cold. A soft scraping, like fingernails dragging along tile. It moved slowly, patient, circling. I held my breath. In the distance, Owen gagged. I heard it clearly, like he was right next to me. A wet retch, muffled as if he'd clamped his hand over his mouth. Then a choking inhale. The director's voice snapped, not cheerful for once. No vomiting. Not yet. The scraping stopped. Then Lorna screamed. Not a movie scream. Not a dramatic wail. A real, ugly scream that cut off abruptly like someone had pinched a wire. I slammed my hand against the door. Stop. What the fuck are you doing? No answer. I pounded again, harder. Open the goddamn door. My voice sounded tiny in that cold room. The breathing deepened. I heard Devin whisper, please. Then I heard something worse than screaming. I heard laughter. Not the director's. Not human laughter. A wet, bubbling giggle that came in the gaps between breaths, like whatever was breathing was amused. My vision blurred. I backed away from the door, shaking, nails digging into my palms. I looked around the room desperately, searching for something, anything that could explain it. The desk was bolted down. The chairs were bolted down. The walls were blank except for one thing I hadn't noticed before, a small square of dark glass mounted high up, like a one-way observation window. It didn't reflect the room. It reflected something else. At first I thought it was just darkness. Then shapes moved in it, slow and thick, like things drifting underwater. I stepped closer, heart hammering. My reflection didn't appear. Instead, I saw the set room from a weird angle, like the glass was a camera feed. Owen stood behind the camera, body rigid, face turned away. The director stood near the couch, smiling. And behind the couch, low, glossy, faceless, something crouched with an arm stretched toward Lorna. Even through the glass, I could see the way the arm bent wrong, joints folding like wet cardboard. Lorna's face was frozen in terror, tears carving lines down her cheeks. Devin was shaking so hard his shoulders bounced, but his eyes were locked on the camera lens like it owned him. The director placed a hand on Devin's head, gentle as a blessing. There we go, he said. The faceless thing touched Lorna's shoulder. Her skin dimpled like clay. Her features began to shift, subtle smoothing, erasing. I staggered back from the glass while rising. Then the image in the glass jerked slightly, as if the viewpoint had turned, and it centered on me. Not my reflection, Me, standing in the side room, staring up at the glass, mouth open, eyes wide. I stumbled back, slamming into the wall. The glass showed me from above like I was being watched by something perched on the ceiling. And behind me, in that view, there was a shape in the corner of the room that shouldn't have fit in the corner. Tall, too tall, pressed into the angle between walls like it was folding itself into the geometry. I couldn't see its head. I could see its hand, though, resting lightly on my shoulder. I screamed then, a sound I didn't recognize as my own. The door opened immediately, like they'd been waiting for that cue. The director stood there, smiling like I'd just nailed a line read. "Time," he said. "Excellent timing." I stumbled out, gasping, and the director's hand slid from my shoulder like it had never been there. The set room was quiet, too quiet. The couch was empty. Owen stood behind the camera, trembling, his face pale. Lorna and Devin weren't anywhere. "Ispuni na circle, DZ. Where are they?" The director tilted his head. "They're resting." "Bullshit," I snapped. "Where are they?" He stepped closer. I backed away automatically, hitting the edge of the coffee table. My hip bruised. "Annabelle," he said, voice still gentle. "Don't waste emotion on the transitional cast. You're the one we're investing in." I stared at him. "Transitional cast?" He gave a small shrug. "Not everyone has this structure for the film." My stomach twisted. "Structure?" His eyes flicked to Owen, then back to me. "Owen, stop the camera." Owen's hand shook as he hit stop. He looked like he might collapse. The director nodded. "Good. You can go sit now." Owen didn't move. The director's smile sharpened, barely. "Owen." Owen flinched and stumbled toward the side room, not looking at me. As he passed, he whispered so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "Don't look," he said. "Whatever you do, don't look." Then the door shut behind him with that wet sound. I stared after him, chest tight. The director turned to me. "Your turn." My mouth went dry. "My turn for what?" He gestured toward the couch. "Seat." I didn't move. He sighed, almost disappointed. "Annabelle, you came. You understand that means you're already cooperating." "I came because you threatened my job," I said, voice shaking. "You're fucking insane." "Insane is a word people use when they don't want to admit something is real," he said, calm as ever. "Seat." I took a step back. "No." The director's smile faded entirely. The air in the room shifted. The lights buzzed louder. My ears popped like pressure change. He didn't move fast. He didn't have to. Something in the darkness beyond the set lights moved. That glossy crouch. That faceless weight. The breathing filled the room, wet and intimate. My body reacted before my mind caught up. My legs went weak. My knees threatened to fold. The director's smile returned, softer now, like pity. "There, you feel it." I swallowed hard, eyes burning. "What is it?" He leaned in, voice low. "It's the audience." My stomach lurched. He straightened and clapped his hands once, bright again. "Places. We'll do a clean take." "Clean take," I repeated, hysterical edge creeping in. "You just erased 2 people." He blinked slowly. They weren't erased. They were recorded. The way he said recorded made it sound like a religious word. He pointed to the couch again. "Seat," he said. My body did it like I'd been programmed. Like my muscles remembered something my brain didn't. The couch fabric was rough under my palms, slightly damp. Cold. I stared at the camera lens. It stared back, dead and unblinking. The director moved behind the camera. Owen was gone. Just me, the camera, and the director's voice. "You'll begin," he said. "When you're ready." My throat felt thick. What am I supposed to say? "You'll know," he said gently. "Just let the film speak through you." I shook my head, tears threatening. "I don't." "Annabelle," he said, and his tone sharpened, "don't fight the script. Fighting looks bad on camera." I stared at the lens, breathing hard. Then, from the darkness, the breathing deepened. A scrape came across the tile, slow and patient, like a nail dragging. My mouth opened. Words came out. Not ones I chose. "I am open." I heard myself say. My voice sounded wrong, flat, delayed, like Mara's on the footage. Like my own sound was arriving late to my own mouth. Panic surged. I tried to stop speaking. I bit my tongue hard enough to taste blood. My mouth kept moving. "I am a room that waits," I said, and the words felt like cold worms crawling out of me. "I am a mouth without teeth." The director murmured, pleased. Yes. I felt something behind me. Not touching yet, just the presence, the weight of attention like a spotlight made of breath. My eyes watered. I couldn't blink. I tried to twist, to look, but Owen's whisper echoed in my head. "Don't look," like a command. My gaze stayed glued to the lens. "I'm a guest," I said, but it wasn't me anymore. It was like my mouth was a speaker and something else had the mic. The scrape came closer. My skin prickled. My shoulders tensed. "I am the hunger," I said, voice trembling now. "I am the hand that learns the shape of a face." Something touched my shoulder. My skin dimpled under it like clay. A sound clawed up my throat. Not a scream. A broken moan. I didn't blink. I couldn't. The pressure on my shoulder increased, gentle, testing, like fingers kneading dough. My face tingled. Heat spread across my cheekbones, my jaw, my lips. I could feel the shape of my own features shifting. Not pain exactly. More like numbness, like when you sit on your leg too long and it stops being yours. I tried to pull away, but my body stayed seated, pinned by something that wasn't hands. The director's voice stayed calm. "Perfect. Let it smooth you. Let it make you suitable." Suitable. I sobbed silently, tears pouring down my face. The touch moved from my shoulder toward my neck, my jawline. My skin tingled violently, like 1,000 ants under it. Then, very softly, in the space between breaths, a voice that wasn't the director's whispered right behind my ear. Not words, not language. A sound like someone trying to speak with a mouth full of water. My stomach turned. I gagged. The director snapped, irritated. "Swallow it." "Not yet." I forced the gag down, choking on my own saliva. The fingers, if they were fingers, pressed along my jaw, and I felt something peel inside my skin, like my face was a sticker being lifted from a surface. I wanted to die. I wanted to disappear. I wanted my mom. I wanted anything but this. And through all of it, the camera kept recording. Because that was the point. That was always the point. Something in me cracked then. Not like a bone, like a decision. If the film wanted honesty, I would give it something else. I focused on the lens like it was a person. I shoved my terror down hard enough, it became anger. And I spoke, really spoke, through the lines around them, into them. "I'm not yours," I rasped. The director's voice sharpened. "Annabelle." The pressure on my face increased suddenly, like the thing didn't like that. My vision flashed white. I forced the words out anyway, teeth clenched. "You're a parasite." The director's voice went cold. "Stop." The touch on my jaw tightened. Pain finally erupted, sharp and clean, like a scalpel. I screamed then, real scream, and the scream ripped the air like cloth. The lights flickered hard. The camera image on the monitor jittered. For a split second, I saw something in the camera's little display. My face close up, tears streaking, mouth open. And behind my shoulder, a hint of glossy skin. No face, just a wrong hole where a face should be, like a mouth turned inside out. My scream cut off, not because I stopped, because something covered my mouth. Cold, vet, smelling like pennies and sweet ash. The director's voice came back warm, soothing like a lullaby. "There we go. That's better. Don't fight. Fighting makes scars." My eyes rolled back involuntarily. My body shook, then went heavy like my muscles were giving up. The pressure eased slightly. The cold hand, or whatever it was, stroked my cheek like a pet. I cried silently, helpless. Then the door to the side room opened. Owen stepped out, pale, eyes wild. He looked at the director, then at me. Our eyes met, and in his gaze I saw something that made my chest tighten harder than fear. Recognition, like he'd been sitting on that couch before. Like he'd had that hand on his face before. He moved toward me fast, like he'd finally decided to stop being obedient even if it killed him. "Stop," he croaked. "Stop it, please." The director didn't turn. "Owen, you're off set." Owen ignored him. He grabbed the tripod handle with both hands and jerked it, yanking the camera off its framing. The lens swung wildly, capturing a smear of ceiling lights and then darkness. The shadow beyond the set. The breathing surged. The glossy shape shifted. For one perfect, awful second, the camera caught it clearly. It wasn't faceless because it lacked a face. It was faceless because its face was everywhere. Smooth skin broken by too many openings, slits, mouths, eyes arranged wrong, sliding around like they couldn't decide where to be. A hand reached out, long and jointed, and grabbed the camera. The image jolted, then steadied. The camera was being held. Owen screamed, a sound of pure panic. "No, no, no." The director's voice stayed calm. "Owen, you looked." Owen stumbled back, clutching his eyes like he could undo it. The thing behind the camera breathed out. A wet, delighted exhale. And then Owen's face went slack, like a switch flipped. He lowered his hands. His mouth hung open, his eyes fixed on the lens. The lens it was holding now pointed straight at him. His lips moved. "I'm open," he said, delayed, flat. The director sighed, almost fond. "See? So much easier." My body was still pinned on the couch, but the pressure on my mouth had eased just enough for me to breathe. I stared at Owen, horror and something sharper twisting inside me. The camera, the thing holding it, tilted slightly as if savoring the shot. Owen's eyes filled with tears. His face tried to move and couldn't. The director stepped forward and placed a hand on Owen's shoulder, gentle. "There we go," he murmured. And then, like a magician's trick done too close, Owen's features began to smooth. Not dramatically, just drift. His nose flattened slightly. His cheekbones shifted. His lips thinned. He looked less like Owen and more like nothing. Like a placeholder face in a character creator before you add details. The thing behind the camera giggled wetly. I tried to stand. My legs didn't answer. The director glanced at me. "You see the purpose now." My voice came out ragged. "You're making masks." He smiled. "We're making roles." The camera swung back to me. The cold hand returned to my jaw, firmer now, impatient. My vision blurred with tears. My stomach lurched. I tried to speak again, to spit something defiant into the lens, but my tongue felt heavy. And then, in the midst of that suffocating helplessness, my phone buzzed. It was in my hoodie pocket. The vibration was tiny, stupid, normal. But it broke something in the room, like a wrong note in a song. The director's eyes flicked to my pocket, irritation flashing. "You brought a device." "I forgot, I krukit." The cold hand paused. The breathing hesitated, like the audience was listening. My phone buzzed again. Then again. The director stepped closer, reaching toward my pocket. My body moved without permission. My hand shot up and grabbed his wrist. His skin felt like cool rubber. Dry. Too smooth. His eyes narrowed for the first time I'd seen. "Annabelle." I yanked my phone out with my other hand, thumb shaking. The screen lit up. It was Jade. "Call me. Please. Something's wrong." He came back. My blood turned to ice. The director saw the name. His mouth tightened. "You promised," I rasped. His smile came back, but it didn't reach his eyes now. "We're not cruel," he said, echoing himself like it was funny. "We're thorough." I stared at him, something in me snapping again. "You're going to hurt her," I said. "Because I'm here anyway." He shrugged slightly. "She's adjacent." The word adjacent made me want to vomit. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jade. He's standing outside. He's smiling at the door like he knows I'm looking. "Anya, I'm scared." I didn't think. I didn't plan. I did the only thing that felt like a weapon. I hit call. The director's eyes widened a fraction. "No." The cold hand on my jaw tightened. Pain flared. I gasped and held the phone up anyway, screen pressed close to my cheek, like maybe if Jade heard my voice she'd run. The line rang once. Twice. Jade picked up, voice shaking. Annabelle. Jade, I choked. Get out. Leave. Call the cops. Don't. A sound came through the phone then, faint but unmistakable. That wet, everywhere breathing. Not from my end. From hers. Jade inhaled sharply. What is that? My stomach dropped. Jade, run. The director leaned closer, voice like silk. Put on speaker. I didn't. I couldn't move my thumb. My fingers were going numb. Jade whispered, he's knocking. He's knocking like a pattern. I heard it through the phone. 3 slow knocks. Exactly the same rhythm. Jade whimpered. Annie, what did you get me into? I am sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. The director's hand closed around my wrist, squeezing hard enough to make my bones ache. In the call, he said polite. No, he whispered. He squeezed harder. My grip faltered. The cold hand on my jaw slid up, covering more of my face, smothering. I heard Jade breathing fast, panicked. He's at the peephole, she whispered. He's so close, he's smiling. My vision tunneled. I forced air into my lungs and screamed into the phone, voice raw. Don't look. Jade went silent. For a second, there was nothing but that wet breathing on the line. Then Jade whispered very softly, like she was reading a line. We can't do this with you watching. My blood ran cold. The director's smile returned full, triumphant. There, he said gently. Now you understand. You can't save everyone by refusing your role. I shook my head violently, tears streaming, trying to dislodge the cold hand, trying to wake up, trying to unhear Jade's voice. But the line stayed open. Jade's voice came again, delayed, flat. Not her anymore. Can't you start the camera and look away? She said. The director leaned close to the phone, speaking into it like he was greeting a friend. Hello, Jade, he said cheerfully. You'll do beautifully. Jade made a small sound that might have been a sob. Then the call ended. Not because I hung up, because someone on the other end did. My phone screen went dark. In the sudden silence, my own breathing sounded obscene. The director released my wrist like he'd made his point. The cold hand on my face resumed its work, stroking, pressing, smoothing. I shook, helpless, rage and grief burning through me like acid. You're monsters, I whispered. The director tilted his head. We're filmmakers. The camera lens stared at me, unblinking, greedy. The breathing deepened, pleased. The cold hand pressed along my jawline again, and I felt that peeling sensation return, deeper now, as if it was finding seams inside me. My thoughts started to slip, not like I was passing out, like something was editing them, cutting the sharp edges, softening the resistance. I clung to one thought, Jade. My mouth moved and words came out delayed, flat. I am open. I tried to stop. I couldn't. I'm a room that waits. The director's voice murmured, satisfied. Yes, let it in. The glossy presence leaned closer. I felt its breath against my cheek, wet and cold. My face tingled violently. My lips went numb. My eyes burned, unable to blink. And then, in the camera display, I saw a flicker of movement. Not in the darkness behind me, in the glass of one of the framed pictures on the wall. A reflection. The camera, the couch, me, and behind me, tall and folded wrong into the corner of the room, the thing watching itself being watched. Its hand was on my shoulder, but in the reflection, I could see what it held between its fingers. A thin strip of pale skin. My skin. I made a sound like an animal. The director's voice went sharp. Annabelle, eyes front. I snapped my gaze back to the lens, heart hammering. And I realized, with a sick drop in my gut, that the reflection wasn't showing me the present. It was showing me the footage. Because in the reflection, the director wasn't behind the camera. He was behind me, smiling over my shoulder like a proud father. And my own face, my face in the reflection, wasn't mine anymore. It was smoother, less detailed, like a mask. My breath hitched. No, he whispered. The cold hand pressed harder. I felt something inside my face give way, like clay being reshaped. My vision blurred, then sharpened. The room looked cleaner, somehow. Edges crisper, colors slightly more saturated, like I was seeing it through a screen. I realized with horror that I wasn't just being filmed. I was being made film. The director's voice softened again. "There we go," he murmured. "See? You're adapting." I tried to scream, and instead my mouth shaped the words. "I am the guest." Tears poured down my cheeks, but my face didn't move. "I'm a hunger." The breathing around me sounded delighted, almost intimate, like applause without hands. "I am the hand that learns the shape of a face." The director sighed with pleasure. "Beautiful." The cold hand slid away. For the first time since I sat down, my body felt lighter, like whatever pinned me had loosened. The director stepped into frame, crouching beside the couch so the camera captured us both. He smiled at the lens like he was addressing an audience. "And now," he said warmly, "we introduce our new actor." He placed his hand under my chin and tilted my face toward the camera like he was presenting a doll. "Annabelle," he said, "say hello." My mouth opened. A voice came out. It sounded like mine, but it wasn't saying what I wanted. "Hello," I said, delayed, flat, smiling slightly without meaning to. I did such a good job filming. The director's smile widened. "And?" he prompted gently. My throat tightened. Tears kept falling. My mind screamed. My mouth obeyed. "We decided to offer me another job," I said, the words sliding out smooth as oil. The director's eyes gleamed. "And this time," my mouth said, smiling wider, "I can be an actor." The director clapped softly, delighted. "Perfect." Something shifted behind the camera. That wet giggle again. The director stood and stepped out of frame. "Cut," he said, even though he never cut. But this time the camera stopped. The red dot vanished. For a second, there was silence. Real silence. The breathing receded like a tide pulling back. My body sagged. I collapsed forward, hands on my knees, gagging, sobbing, trying to pull air into lungs that felt like they'd been held underwater. The director's hand landed on my back, gentle. "Good work," he said. I jerked away like he was poison. "Let me go," I whispered. He sighed like I was exhausting. "You can go home," he said. "For now." I stared up at him through tears. "For now." He smiled. "The film takes time. Editing takes time. And you," he tapped my cheek lightly, "need to set." I wiped my face with shaking hands. My fingertips tingled when they touched my skin, like the nerve endings had been rearranged. "Where's Owen?" I croaked. The director glanced toward the darkness beyond the set, as if checking a prop. "Owen's in post," he said lightly. My stomach lurched. "What does that even mean?" "It means he'll be seen," the director said, like that was a gift. Eventually, I stumbled to my feet. My legs felt weird, like they weren't fully mine, like my joints were slightly off. I grabbed my bag from the floor and backed toward the door, not taking my eyes off the director. He didn't follow. He just smiled, hands clasped behind his back again, teacher posture. "Annabelle," he called softly as I reached the hallway. "Don't do anything dramatic." I paused. "Or what?" His smile never wavered. "Or we'll cast someone you love again." My throat tightened until it hurt. I left. I drove home in a haze, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles ached. The world outside my windows looked too bright, too normal. People at stoplights, a kid on a bike, a dog pulling on a leash. It made me want to scream. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door, bolted it, shoved a chair under the knob like that would stop anything. Then I went to the bathroom and stared into the mirror. My face looked like my face. Mostly, but something was off. It was subtle, the kind of thing no one would notice unless they knew you. My cheekbones looked a little smoother, my jawline a touch less sharp, like someone had sanded the edges. I leaned closer and touched my skin. My fingertips tingled again. Static. I pressed my thumb into my cheek, hard enough to hurt. The skin dimpled, then sprang back. Normal. But in the moment it dimpled, I had this vivid, sick sensation that if I pressed harder, my face would stay. Like clay. I jerked my hand away and back from the mirror, breathing hard. My phone buzzed. A text from Jade's number. I stared at it for a long time, shaking. Finally, I opened it. Hello, Annabelle. You did such a good job filming, we decided to offer you another job. This time, you could be an actor. My blood ran cold. Not because of the words, because of the name, Annabelle, with an E. They'd spelled it wrong the first time. They'd called me Annabelle in the original message too, and I'd been too terrified to care. But Jade never spelled it that way. Jade always called me Annie. My throat closed. I typed, hands trembling. Jade? The reply came instantly. We can't do this with you watching. I dropped the phone like it was hot. It hit the floor with a crack. I stood there shaking, staring at it like it might crawl. My apartment was silent. Then, very faintly, I heard it. Not from outside, not from the hallway, from inside my own walls. That wet, everywhere breathing. I clapped my hands over my ears. It didn't help, because the sound wasn't entering through my ears. It was coming from inside my skull, like a memory you can't stop replaying. I ran to my laptop. I don't know why. Panic makes you stupid. Maybe I thought if I destroyed the footage, it would loosen its grip. Maybe I thought the film lived in the file, and if I deleted it, it would die. I yanked the laptop open and slammed the hard drive folder up, fingers slipping on the keys. The file was still there, the original footage. I hovered over it, about to delete. Before I could click, the file opened on its own. The video started playing. Mara and Eli stared from the screen, unblinking, delayed voices filling my apartment like smoke. We can't do this with you watching. I slapped the trackpad, trying to close it. The cursor didn't move. The video kept playing. In a reflection frame, me standing there behind the camera, slack-faced, was clearer than I'd ever seen it. And behind me, the tall thing's hand rested on my shoulder. In its fingers, a thin strip of pale skin. My skin. I screamed and shoved the laptop off the table. It hit the floor, screen cracking, but the audio kept playing from the speakers, tinny and wrong. The breathing swelled, delighted. I backed into the corner of my living room, shaking so hard my teeth clacked. I wanted to run. I wanted to claw my own face off. I wanted to rip my eyes out so I couldn't look anymore. And then the most horrible thought settled in with awful calm. It didn't need the laptop. It didn't need the file. It didn't need the building. It needed witnesses. And I had watched. I had looked. I had played it back. I had paused on it like that mattered. I had given it attention like attention was food. The audio from the cracked laptop shifted, voices warping. My own voice came through, delayed and flat. I am open. I clamped my hands over my mouth. My lips moved anyway, like a puppet pulling strings from inside my cheeks. I'm a room that waits. Hot tears poured down my face. My vision blurred. In the black screen of the TV, I saw my reflection. And for a second, just long enough to ruin me, I saw the version of me the film had recorded. Smoother face, slight smile, eyes too still, standing behind my shoulder, folded into the corner of my living room where no one could fit. The tall, glossy thing watched me watch myself. Its hand rested on my shoulder like a friend. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Minutes, hours. Time doesn't behave when you're halfway in a screen. What I do know is this. I didn't go back to the cafe. I couldn't. Every time my phone buzzed, it was either Jade's number sending lines from the script or an unknown number reminding me politely that I had a call time. I didn't answer. I didn't reply. I threw the phone in a drawer and stuffed towels around it like I could muffle the film. I tried to leave my apartment once. I got as far as the hallway. The lights buzzed. I smelled sweet ash. I looked down the corridor and saw, at the far end, a figure standing too still. Hoodie, smile, waiting. I ran back inside and locked the door and sobbed until my throat was raw. After that, I stopped trying to run. Instead, I started doing what I'm doing now. Talking, recording myself, not on a camera, not like that, just telling it, putting it in words, because words feel less dangerous than images. Maybe that's stupid too. Maybe this is still giving it attention, but I don't know what else to do. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm almost asleep, I feel a cool pressure on my shoulder like someone resting a hand there. Sometimes I wake up with my cheek tingling like it's been pressed and smoothed. Sometimes I catch my reflection and it looks fine. And sometimes, just sometimes, It looks like the version of me on the couch, smiling slightly without meaning to. A role, a mask, part of the film. If you're listening to this and you think you can find the building or the director or the footage, if you think you can be brave and dig it up and expose it, don't. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying it because the only real rule I've learned is the simplest one, and it's the one nobody can follow once they're curious. Don't look.